Question, could there ever be another player like Michael Jordan? After 5 NBA championships and a legacy that will live on forever, the Mamba Kobe Bryant has answered that question. Talents around the NBA like Luka Doncic have real potential to form into this kind of role, but there's a guy who plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves who has the league buzzing right now, and that man is Anthony Edwards. With freakish athleticism and a go-to mid-range jumper, Anthony Edwards has definitely modeled his game after the GOAT. And in today's video, we find out how Anthony Edwards is taking over the NBA. Drafted with the first overall pick by the Minnesota Timberwolves back in 2020, Anthony Edwards had major hype surrounding him coming into the league. His draft night comparisons were Victor Oladipo with more size and a more advanced outside game, and Dominique Wilkins. In his young career, Anthony Edwards has already drawn some comparisons to MJ and Kobe. So let's take a deep dive into his game and look in to see if Anthony Edwards is the next Michael Jordan. Anthony Edwards can shoot the ball anywhere on the floor, connecting on 37% of his three-point shots while being a solid free throw shooter, making 87% from the line. Although Ant can shoot the three ball and the statistics back this, the eye test will tell you he's much more comfortable at getting to the cup. Edwards shoots 50% on 2-point baskets, as he is elite at getting downhill due to the otherworldly athleticism, strength, and finishing ability he possesses. These skills makes Edwards a walking highlight, as some of the dunks he has pulled off during games are unbelievable to say the least. However, this athleticism is common in the NBA, but what sets Anthony Edwards apart is his shooting touch and strength. A player like Ja Morant can get downhill just as well, if not better than Anthony Edwards. However, the mid-range game and his ability to drive downhill through traffic sets Anthony Edwards apart. Teams tend to not guard him on the perimeter, making it much harder for him to get downhill in an isolation situation. But when it comes to Anthony Edwards, his three-point shooting makes you have to gamble, as he's more than capable from outside if you give him any kind of space. Edwards is shooting 34% on off-the-dribble three-pointers, which at face value doesn't look incredibly efficient, but when you take into consideration how tough these looks are, it's a fairly impressive stat. If you attempt to guard him in single coverage, he'll drive downhill and the chances are he's going to put you on a poster or get an easy basket for 2. While when you do commit the other defender to close the lane off, it's no problem for Ant, as he's more than comfortable to fall back on his mid-range game or take a three-point shot above the break. Anthony Edwards is still one of the few players in the NBA who consistently takes and makes mid-range jumpers. From pull-up or fading jump shots to floaters and hook shots, Anthony Edwards has it all in his bag. Due to the ridiculous athleticism, Edwards creates separation on turnaround jump shots with ease. On this play against Warriors forward Draymond Green, he uses his strength to bump Draymond off of him while spinning right, using his athleticism to bury a free throw line jumper basically uncontested. The amount of space he created on this play is borderline unfair to opposing defenses, as he can turn an isolation situation into an open look more times than not. Without even having to run plays for this man, he will dominate any opposing defense that any team can throw at him. Today, with the limited mid-range jump shooters that exist in the league, such as DeMar DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, and Kevin Durant, it makes the defense almost not expect these kinds of shots. Every season he has been in the NBA, his mid-range jump shot shooting percentages have improved. Last season he shot 37% in the mid-range, but so far this season, those numbers have rocketed up to 44% inside the arc. The shooting performance that he has put on so far this season has propelled himself into the conversation of the best mid-range shooters in the game today. Even though the statistics will tell you that the mid-range jump shot is the worst shot in basketball today, for me, if these players can take and make these shots at a ridiculous rate, why would you not want these players shooting these shots? With it only being his 4th season in the NBA, he is already averaging 26.7 points, 6 rebounds, 5.1 assists, shooting at 46% from the field. A huge improvement from his game compared to last season was the free throw shooting. Last season he shot 75% from the stripe, but with a lot of off-season work, he's added 12% on that number, making him an 87% free throw shooter this season. This mark of 87% puts him in the upper echelon of free throw shooters in the game today. Now, to answer the burning question, is Michael Jordan a fair comparison, and could he be just as great? We need to cover 3 elements, which are leadership, scoring ability, and shot selection. Jordan was an all-time great player, but he was also a great leader. He led by example while pushing his teammates every day during practices. During games, it's clear that Anthony Edwards has a similar attitude toward pushing his teammates and leading his teams to success. Patrick Beverley, a former teammate of Edwards, was on the Gilbert Arenas podcast and discussed at length about how competitive he was on and off the court, just like Michael. From practices to a simple game of Madden, Edwards always needed to win. Moving on to his scoring ability, which we have discussed at length, but now we have to compare it to Jordan's. The kinds of numbers Michael Jordan put up in his first 4 seasons in the league is far above Edwards. As in only year 3, Jordan put up 37 points, 3 steals, shooting a widely impressive 53%. The highest points per game Ant has ever reached is this season with 27 points a game. What makes these numbers from Michael Jordan even more incredible was the fact that the game was much more physical, as you were allowed to hand check and the 3-second rule was not yet implemented. For Jordan to have to play in these circumstances and still average 10 more points than Anthony Edwards, this should show you that the basketball world comparing him to Michael Jordan is a little naive at this point. When it comes to shot selection, Edwards takes similar shots. However, early in Jordan's career, he never attempted more than 2 3-pointers per game until the 1990s, as he would take a heavy diet of mid-range jump shots. With the NBA in its current state, Edwards has attempted more than 2 threes a game every single season. In fact, his career average for 3-pointers taken a game is 7.6, which is more than double the number Jordan ever took in his highest season, which was 3.6 in 1997. If Anthony Edwards wants to carve out an all-time great legacy in the NBA, he has to start winning now. Last season, the Timberwolves made it to the postseason as the 8th seed, but they were beaten by the Denver Nuggets in just 5 games. However, what NBA fans were unable to ignore was how well Anthony Edwards played over these 5 games. Over this 5-game stretch, he averaged 31 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, adding 2 steals and 2 blocks, while shooting an effective 48% from the field. These kinds of performances from Edwards in the postseason have NBA fans in general hype, as we are excited to see what he could do this season with a better team around him. The Minnesota Timberwolves at the time of recording this video are the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, as they boast the league's best defense. With Anthony Edwards as the number 1 option running the offense, they have looked much better on that side of the floor as well. Last season, the combination of Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert appeared to look clunky and dysfunctional at times, but this season the pair has been able to put it together, as they are a huge reason to why this Minnesota Timberwolves team is so damn good right now. Minnesota will play Cat and Rudy at the same time, and also space their minutes, as if they need an offensive lineup, they sub in Cat, and if the defense is lacking, then they have Rudy Gobert to block big shots and clog up the painted area. With a great start to the season, the Timberwolves have cemented themselves as a real contender to make it out of the Western Conference. With a more than solid team around them, expect the Timberwolves to make some serious noise in the postseason, as if the playoffs started today, Minnesota would have a home playoff series against the Lakers, but we expect the Lakers to rise from the 8th seed, so the opponent would most likely be a team like the Pelicans or the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors series in particular would be one that fans around the NBA would be excited to see, as the games between these two franchises so far this season have been vicious, as in the second game 3 players were ejected before the first points were even scored. Anthony Edwards also said in the interview before the season he would love to beat the Warriors in the postseason, as he says that Draymond Green talks way too much trash. This matchup would be must-see TV, as I would back the T-Wolves winning 4 games to 2. With the improved stats that come playoff time from Anthony Edwards, I could envision the Timberwolves making it to the Western Conference Finals and having a real chance for the NBA Finals. Defense wins championships, and with quality offensive talent in Edwards, who may just be a top 10 player by the end of the season, nobody should be sleeping on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Could Ant become the next Michael Jordan? I look forward to hearing from you in the comments below.